Mahalo. How about we give them a big mahalo? All right. So while she's demonstrating and opening and showing what's inside, I'm going to tell you that on February 21st, that's today, as well as on Thursday, tomorrow, from 2 to 5 at the Humane Society's Lahaina Pet Resource Center. And then again on Friday, from 2 to 5, you can get one at the Maui Seaside Hotel. So you get the entire kit for free for you and your pet. Isn't this fabulous? It's got a toy, it's got a leash, some pet food. Are there snacks in there? It's got a bag.
There's a cat pack and a dog pack.
A cat pack and a dog pack.
They're focused on comfort and for your pet, so snacks.
Okay. Great. So they have a lot of comfort items in the back in the pack. Some squeaky toys.
And then also for the people.
And we also have one that's just for humans.
So pet parents as well.
Okay, so here's one for parents. For Kiki.
Okay, so it's all your toiletries, your sunscreen.
Oh, it's an adult pack. For toiletries. And again, these are free. So tomorrow at the Lahaina Pet Resource Center, Ulupono Street. And then on Friday, you can get laundry sheets, the eco sheets. And then at Maui Seaside. Oh, and a pet blanket. All right.
Okay.
And then we also have some that we can distribute after.
Yeah.
And right after the meeting, come look for these guys with the greater good. And if you may, look, Auntie over here with her dog.
We found you.
If you have a pet with you tonight, you can go first in line, okay? Maybe your pet wants something. So mahalo, greater good. How about a hand for them and Maui Humane Society? Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, folks. Tonight on our agenda, you're going to hear us cover quite a bit of things. We'll go ahead to the next slide. Tonight, you're going to hear about community planning, particularly the online engagement that's launching. We're going to hear about debris removal, including the experience of one of Mayor's Lahaina advisory team members. His own lot was cleared and gone through the process. We're going to get cesspool information and health study information from the Department of Health. And then, of course, we're going to be sharing tonight these community survey results that had over 2,000 participants as far as going through the different disposal site options for the permanent ash and debris containment site. And then we're going to host a question and answer period at the very end, as we did at the last meeting. So we'll welcome all of you back. Welcome to those watching on live stream. And we'll begin this evening with Mayor Bisson's comments. Mayor Bisson.
Aloha mai kako lahaina ohana. Thank you folks all for being here. We were off the last 2 Wednesdays because last Wednesday you folks either went to get your Ash Wednesday ashes or you went out for Valentine's Day. So those are the reasons we didn't hold our session last week, Wednesday. The Wednesday before that, we moved it to Thursday so we could have the remembrance on February 8th. So welcome back. Thank you folks for coming back. By the way, if you want one of those pet packets, make sure you get one pet, okay? You guys? We have lots of pets at the shelter if you folks want to go get one so that you can qualify for the packets. But really, thank you for making those available for our folks. I just wanted to share what's happened the last couple of weeks, maybe even the last couple of days. So yesterday, our team went to the Ways and Means Committee meeting. Some of you may have read about it. And we put in our request from Maui for $401.75 million to help us with infrastructure, housing, and emergency preparation for our county. We're also committing some money to that, about $198.75 million. Of course, we'll be requesting that from our county council. And this is part of that $600 million or so is over 3 years. So it's not all in 1 year. So if you hear about that, we'll present more about that the next time we meet again. But just so you understand, that is something we are seeking on behalf of our county. Our Office of Recovery put together an excellent package, which is on our MauiRecovers.org site. So you can all see it's about 33 slides. And it has all the breakdown of the information of interim, short-term, and long-term housing projects and plans that we are interested in pursuing. So that's something that happened yesterday. Today, we spent a good part of the day with the Secretary of Transportation for the United States, Pete Buttigieg. He was here on island. I think he's just flying off right now. But he was here all day today, visited with different sites. But what's important about him is they've committed to helping us with some of our projects, our transportation projects. There are many of them, and again, I'll leave that at some point to Jordan Molina or John to come and talk about more detail. But one of the ones we talked about was the realignment of Honoapi'ilani Highway between Ukumehami and Olowalu. There's sort of that wash zone in there where the water comes up. So there's discussion of some monies we've received from the federal government and from other sources, other partners, to try to realign that road so we can improve access in and out of Lahaina. So that is one of the projects being pursued, and he had a few other ideas. So just wanted to share those updates with you. You're going to hear from all the important people and the subject matter experts in a little bit. But I'd like to call upon your council member from West Maui, Tamar Paulton, to make her remarks.
Aloha mai kakou. I went with them to the Ways and Means Committee meeting. It wasn't that much fun, as you can see. But I did want to let everyone know about two other meetings coming up in the next week or so. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. at the Kumulani Chapel, 1000 Kapalua Drive, there's a public meeting with State DLNR to assess pain and suffering and cultural damage from the yacht grounding at Honolulu in the beginning of last year. So, kind of the message is to set an example and don't allow that to happen again. And also next February 27th, I believe it's a Tuesday, the State Department of Human Services asked my office to host a meeting with them to talk about the interim housing plans for those who are FEMA ineligible. And that will be right here at the gym, 4:30 to 6 p.m. on February 27th. And it's open to all, but it's talking about the State Department of Human Services plans for interim housing for those who are FEMA ineligible. So just wanted to put that out there for folks. And that's pretty much my announcements for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. We tried to look for a photo of them at the state capitol that didn't show them scowling or frowning, but your council member did a terrific job championing West Maui. So we're going to go ahead and proceed with first Jackie Takakura, followed by we're going to talk about debris, and then bring up our friends from EPA, Department of Health, and then Environmental Management. Jackie?
Thank you. My name is Jackie Takakura. I grew up in Kahului, but anyways, I'm the administrator of the Long Range Planning Division, and I'm here to talk to you about this Ola Lahaina website. It's the new website for online community engagement for Lahaina's wildfire recovery efforts. And you can easily get to this page from the Maui Recovers page. If you go to Maui Recovers, you'll see this big blue box that says Ola Lahaina. And on this website, and it's mauirecovers.org/Lahaina, you can share your thoughts about Lahaina's strengths and weaknesses before and after the fire, and how we can build back better. The input we receive from you will be shared on the website, and participants can view the comments that are being posted. So not only can you post, what you think are strengths or weaknesses, you can see what other people are posting too. And the reason for all of this is because we want to listen to the Lahaina community. on their vision for recovery and rebuilding. This is a great opportunity to share your thoughts, and this will help us develop a long-term recovery plan. So I'm asking if you would please go to this Ola Lahaina webpage between now and March 15th to share your thoughts and ideas. As the recovery efforts continue, Ola Lahaina will be the main resource for staying informed on the latest in-person and online engagement events, accessing feedback from fellow community members, and contributing to drafting Lahaina's long-term recovery plan. If you don't go on the internet very much and you rather come in person and talk to a real human being, you can also come here. We are here at the DRC at the Recovery Center here at the Civic Center on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, or Thursdays from 9 to 3. And we're usually in the table with the blue tablecloth and the big county seal. And we actually have planners there, and it's basically the same thing, but you would just use pen and paper, collecting that information from you. So we are here 3 days a week for this month. Starting March 1st, we'll be here on Wednesdays from 9 to 3. So please come and visit us. We'd love to hear from you. And that, like I said, will go into forming the long-term plan. So thank you very much.
Good evening. Once again, so I'm Colonel Jess Curry from the Corps of Engineers. As always, it's an honor to be able to spend this time with you this evening. I definitely want to acknowledge those of you that continue to come out for this public meeting, every Wednesday, and give us the opportunity to provide updates and really have a conversation, to answer questions, to really express, our thankfulness to this community, but also to give you the information that you need as this process continues to move forward and we continue to make really, really great progress in debris removal and other areas here to support this community. So I'll cover a few things, and then I'm going to take a risk in a minute and try to show a video. It's always a risk in these types of forums that hopefully it'll work. But first, I was asked to really quickly address the temporary debris storage site. I've talked about it in this forum before. As the debris is coming out of Lahaina right now, that the temporary debris storage site is absolutely performing as designed. It's doing everything that we needed it to do to get the uncontrolled hazardous material, contaminated material from Lahaina into a controlled environment. Those trucks are making their way into the TDS and are placing that material there really with tremendous speed. I want to say thank you to the community just for your patience. We've tried our best to limit the impact to traffic. You've noticed the one crossing point there on the main highway where when the trucks come, we try to have them queue up, but ultimately that has to go from green to red at some points to let those trucks back and forth across the highway. But we'll continue to monitor and manage that to try to reduce one more part of the highway that causes delays as you're trying to make your way either to Central Maui or back home from Central Maui. So again, the temporary debris storage site, as I mentioned, it's receiving material now. There have been a lot of questions and valid concerns about how it's going to protect the environment around it. I would say up front and just generally speaking, it is absolutely designed to meet all the requirements and to really protect the environment around that. One of the ways that we've been asked to also communicate with the community is to talk about how we are going to monitor its performance as it moves forward. Earlier in January, the County Council passed what's called Bill 120 that additionally put some of that into writing. And as we've continued to take that and adjust future plans for testing and monitoring, that is all to be in compliance with Bill 120, which has really, really important things to protect the environment that we've added to what we were already planning to do moving forward in order to be compliant there. The first area is the testing, monitoring, and really the treatment of any any water that comes through the TDS. So you may have heard the term leachate. It's not a term that I use very often, but ultimately it's whatever rain falls on the TDS and percolates through that debris. It's collected on the impermeable membrane and then further gravity fed into a detention basin. The testing of that is really, really important, and we will continue to do that and report back to the county on those test results. Additionally, that will we continue to test the runoff around the temporary debris storage site. We recognize that we've changed the landscape for that part of the mountainside. So as that runoff comes around the temporary debris storage site, we recognize that we have to pay attention to what it does. If it comes straight down the roads that we've built, or damages anything from the ditches or other things that were put in place, we will monitor that and continue to repair that per the rain events as they come. And I emphasize that is not runoff that has come through the TDS. Any water that falls on the TDS will be captured and will be addressed appropriately. The third place we were asked to continue to monitor was for air quality. We know that Olowalu is a windy place, and our teams up there continue to put every measure in place to control any dust, anything that would kick up into the air and come off of the TDS. And their methods are working. When we see it up there, they continue to use those. It's very effective. I think really in the last couple of weeks, we did have one day where really based on the wind speeds that we were tracking, we did shut down operations and we stopped placing material for that day because the winds reached that level. And we'll continue to do that in order to protect the environment. Additionally, purple air monitors have been placed around the temporary debris storage site to let us know if any of those conditions start to get to a point that we need to be concerned. I mean, we are monitoring to ensure it doesn't get there, but those monitors are there to collect that data, and that data, as it's collected, will ultimately be available on mauirecovers.org for anyone to see, similar to the other monitoring data that's been provided. Additionally, we're going to continue to test, and those tests will be made available. We did a baseline test of what came through the temporary debris storage site before any debris was placed there, based on the rain event that happened on the 9th of January. And that we have those test results to kind of understand what was already there. But then really every month, anytime we have a 1-inch rain event or greater, they're going to test what is collected in that detention basin, and those test results will be made publicly available. And we'll continue to ensure those are out there, because at the end of all that we're trying to do, we want to maintain the transparency that we've promised. We certainly don't want anyone to stop paying attention to what we're doing in Olowalu, because we expect you to hold us accountable. We need you to hold us accountable, because we will continue to ensure that we're doing the right thing there and protect the environment. So as that goes forward, we'll continue to communicate. One thing I almost forgot. So in addition, we did actually go back after Bill 120 and add additional features to the TDS. We are going to install water monitoring wells, one uphill from the TDS and one downhill. And that's not something that we were originally going to do, but based on the intent and what was shared to us from the community and the county council and what's in Bill 120, we've gone back and are working to modify the construction contract to add those wells, which again will also provide data that will be publicly available. Okay, so that's the temporary debris storage site update. I did want to move on to what I think is what a lot of you are seeing around you in the community, and it's an update on debris removal from residential properties here in Lahaina. So when we started on the 16th of January, I came to the public meeting and I said our goal was to get to 100 properties in 30 days. We hit that goal before 30 days and have kept going. So that was a great accomplishment. To date, we've done debris removal at some level, somewhere in the process on 149 properties. That's today's report, 149 properties. 134 of those properties have had all of the debris removed and are waiting on, either waiting on testing or are getting ready to receive, erosion control because the test came back as no contamination. Or we've actually, the last statistic is we've gone through the process so far for a total of 15 properties that have been completed. So that's debris removed, the erosion control, testing done, erosion control placed, packets completed and given back to the county. So those rights of entry should be back to those residents. And as far as the Corps of Engineers role on those individual properties, included in that letter that goes to the county is the letter that says that your property is clean. And that's what you need for your permitting process. You don't have to do additional testing. You've got that letter because we did the testing. So those 15 of those packets have already gone back. So, really, really exciting to see that. And we're going to see those numbers continue to increase. If you want to see those numbers, we've talked about it in a previous meeting, through MauiRecovers.org, there is a public facing viewer that lays out the exact numbers that I just covered and kind of color codes across the different properties on a map. You can go to that and look and see how many properties and where those properties are that are wherever they're at within the process. If you've turned in an ROE and you don't see your property on that map yet, I would encourage you to go to the county's map that shows ROEs received. So it's ensure that it's there. But those properties will start showing on our map once the archaeological survey is initiated on those properties. So it's really our first step once we receive the ROE. But no matter what, please communicate with us. If you've got questions about where your property is in the pipeline, ask us those questions. We'll help you find that information. And ultimately, we want to again maintain full transparency. The last thing I'll say before I go to try to show the video, really want to say thank you already to those members of the community, those homeowners that have come out to be a part of the initial walkarounds before debris removal starts, that have come out to observe debris removal as it moves forward. It absolutely helps us do our job better, to have that interaction, to understand the things that maybe don't come through quite so clearly on your right of entry sketch. We welcome everyone from those properties to come out, to talk to us when we do the walk around, to tell us more about what's on your property. So as we do that debris removal, we can meet your expectations, and that is the goal. So when you get the call for hey, we're scheduling your debris removal, they will ask, hey, here's the date we think we're going to do the walk around for your property. Do you want to be there? Do you want to be there as we do the debris removal? And throughout that interaction, you'll have the opportunity to say, whatever's unique about your property, whatever we can do, again, to meet your expectations and finish these properties the right way. So really, really thankful again for all that we've already been able to accomplish. There is still a long road ahead, as everyone knows, but we are off to a tremendous start. And I think that's because of this community and the support that you've given us and the trust that you've given us and continue to interact with us. I think we're going to come where we'll do questions at the end. Is that right? Yeah, so we're going to try to show the video now. I think if somebody can click that. So what this video is a time-lapse video of a property. So first I want to say thank you to the property owner that let us take this. What you're seeing here is once they've got on that property, they're removing all the recyclable materials. So the metal, the recyclable concrete, all those things that don't hold contamination that can go to a recycling facility. They're working, they're putting that in trucks. This particular property took about 4 days total to complete. Many of the properties are going much faster than that, partly because there was rain in the middle and they had to stop because they didn't want to make a bigger mess as they were working to remove the debris. Really, once they've removed all the recycled materials, they transition to the ash and debris and contaminated soil. So that's where you see the trucks you can see in the upper right, that plastic line truck. that all that is going into, and those will haul away. Every property is different, so to kind of say how many trucks per property is very difficult just based on the size, but I'll just say as many as are needed to remove that ash and debris. So they continue to fill this particular property and then transition to the final day, which I think this one actually might have a fifth day. But they continue to work through that. This one actually was multi-tiered, so they had additional levels they had to get to. Here in a second, they're going to transition to removing the foundation. And that they break up the foundation, that concrete goes into the trucks, goes to recycling. But again, that's really the last piece of that residence that will be removed. Once they've completed that, they'll remove 6 inches of soil just from the ash footprint. So just that part that was underneath the foundation that was around the ash halo, and then they will remove that 6 inches of soil. Once that's complete, they'll transition to testing. So the team gets out and does tests. As we've mentioned before, they do break, actually, I don't want to skip this part. That before they do the testing, they do go in by hand, shovels on their hands and knees in some cases to remove anything that's left before the tests are executed. So this particular property, this is I think where we stop. Or we don't stop. So they do that testing. They'll mark it with flags. They'll ensure that everything that is done there is fully represented in that testing plan. As those tests come back, ideally they come back without any contaminants. We can add erosion control. But then if they come back with contaminants, again, we will do a limited rescrape in those areas that tested for additional contamination. We wanted to show that. Again, I want to say a special thanks to the property owner that let us take that. If this was way too fast for you, if you go to the public-facing viewer through the MauiRecovers.org, there's a link to this video on that public-facing viewer, so you can go back and watch it again. If people have questions, please ask us questions. The video is not intended to replace those conversations, but this may also help in explaining this process as it moves forward. Okay, so thank you for showing that. And that really completes what I wanted to share tonight. Again, it's always an honor to be able to stand here and give you the updates to represent what's going on out there. And I'm thankful for every one of you and your support to the team.
You can stay here, sir. So I just wanted to say something before we go to our next speaker. Kim, I think it's you. You can make your way down. So Colonel Curry was initially assigned to be here for 3 months. He's been here all 6 months. He's getting ready to return to his home in Illinois next week. He's been so compassionate and humble, and he has been authentic and genuine in every way. And I think you all have seen that for those of you who have come here week in and week out. And for those of you maybe from Kula, he's done the exact same presentations in Kula as well. So I just thought we should give him a really big hand for what he's done for us here now. And his replacement is also sitting here today. This is Colonel Swenson, who will be stepping in as well for him. Who also comes to us from St. Paul. Okay. So he comes to us from St. Paul, Minnesota, and he'll be continuing on the good works of Colonel Curry. So if you want to say anything to him before he leaves tonight, are you going to be here next Wednesday? I'll be here next week. You know what? He's going to be here next Wednesday, so that may be the last meeting we will have with him. But if you want to say hi, please do that. Thank you, everybody. This is Kim Ball. Some of you met a couple weeks ago when he presented. He's one of the members of the advisory team. Most of you know him as Coach Ball here in Lahaina, and he wanted to share, we asked him to share something today.
Thank you. My presentation will be kind of anticlimactic after Colonel Curry's audio, visual, movies, everything. That's the difference between a paid position and a volunteer position. So let me, which button do I hit to start with? Okay, this was our home on the morning of August 8th, probably like a lot of your homes. One of my fellow committee members, Kaliko, thought it would be a good idea if I shared our debris removal experience because it was so recent. So, and like a lot of your homes, this was our home on the morning of August 9th. Our son Cody and his buddy Carl put t-shirts across their face and hiked in from Kaanapali the next morning. Obviously things were still burning, but I was stuck on the other side and wondering if we still had our homes, but our 3 family homes and Carl's family homes were all gone. After, we weren't the quickest to get with our ROE, but we did put in our right of entry forms, and then we saw our next door neighbor's lot being cleared. We saw the lot across the street being cleared. It's like, oh, I'm starting to get a little anxious. And then down at the end of the street, the Ahi's lot, they got cleared. And then finally we got the call. And said she would get to our lot probably in the next 2 weeks. So great, we went to Oahu on this past Friday to see our grandkids. And of course, I got the call that day on Oahu from Randy. And she says, we want to start your property tomorrow. And I go, whoa, can't we delay it? I'll change my flight and come back Saturday. So Sunday morning, we met Mandy and the crew, the 5-person crew involved with the cleaning of our property. So this is my wife, Cindy, and I on that Sunday morning. They do work 7 days a week. It was a Sunday. And it was really cool. We met the 5-person crew, and 4 were local Maui residents, and 1 was a surfer from the mainland who had a Maui connection. The one operator was from Kahuku originally. I could tell because he wore Kahuku t-shirts every day he worked. But his kids were boarders at Lahaina. And I gotta say, Kahuku is probably the only town in Hawaii that comes even close to having the fan support of Lahaina and Lahaina. The project foreman was a young guy from upcountry whose grandpa I knew from entering the Larry Libas Fishing and Diving Tournament, a contest that I've organized for the last 36 years. And now Kalai, his grandson, was our foreman, and he also competes in that tournament. So I just want to say it was reassuring for my wife and I to talk to the crew before they started the debris removal. And we got the feeling they really cared about doing a good job on our lot. And I team in Waikuli, as his whole crew has Lahaina roots, and that's Kimo's neighborhood. So this is Monday, and funny story. So that morning, I was there when they started, and the 4 local boys were there bright and early and started at it. Guess who came in late that morning? The surfer from the mainland, and he was catching gas. It was just typical, right? And this is our lot on Tuesday morning. Our lot looked awesome, and they had already started on my neighbor's lot. I can't say enough about the professionalism of the entire crew, the air monitoring, watering the ash, monitoring the trucks, the safety and protocol of everyone on the crew. We are waiting for the results from the soil testing, and then they'll be able to gravel to prevent the soil erosion. And then hopefully we'll get clearance from the county to apply for building permits. So I just want to thank everybody involved with the debris removal. Thank you.
All right, EPA. Mahina, do you need to say anything before? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. Aloha. My name is Miguel Moreno. Excuse me. I'm the incident commander for the ESF3 mission. That's Emergency Support Functions 3. And you probably have met Carl Banks, who was here at the last meeting. There are 4 incident commanders that rotate out. There's also Don Eisen, which, by the way, Carl Banks is coming back next week, so you get to see him again. And then you haven't met Jenna, but we're going to rotate through the duration of this mission. So you will see me again. And I'm here today to talk about drinking water and wastewater. Right, so first up, under the ESF3 mission, we're working on drinking water in Lahaina. And EPA has several crews out there. You can see some of our crews right here working on a fire hydrant. We're testing for chlorine residual, coliform bacteria, and then also for volatile organic chemicals and semi-volatile organic chemicals. These are chemicals that are introduced into the distribution system when a fire happens. So as a fire happens, the water here in the hill, and as the structures catch on fire, some of the water fixtures just melt away, and the water flows down the hill. It forms really strong suction. And then it sucks all the debris, all ash, and anything pretty much in the structures into the distribution system. Now, the County of Maui and the Department of Water did a really good job at isolating the distribution system of the affected areas. They cut the connections between the homes and the distribution to protect the homes and their plumbing. And then the reason is the VOCs, yes, VOCs, even though the county flushed for weeks, they flushed the system to get a lot of the debris out, get a lot of anything that was introduced into the system. VOCs tend to stick around in the distribution system longer. In fact, they can come out little by little. So what the county has decided is to isolate the laterals, which is the portion of the pipe from the mains to the homes, and cut and cap them. That's part of our mission, and that is the reason why we're testing. So if we find any VOCs in the distribution system, once the data comes in, those are going to be isolated. The laterals are going to be capped. They're going to be cut. And then in the future, the county is going to come in and replace those, just replace the pipes so we don't have those kind of issues. So far, 118 hydrants have been sampled. SVOC samples have begun, and VOC samples began last week. We're looking forward to beginning the lateral sampling, which is the portion of the pipe from the meter to the main line. Here is some chlorine residual testing out in the field. You might see some of the crews out there working. Here's for coliform bacteria. We're checking that there is no bacteria in the distribution system. Anytime there's a line break in the system, that same suction that brought in SVOCs and other contaminants into the distribution system, some breaks can bring in total coliform, but that's why we also have the chlorine residual. Chlorine residual kills all the bacteria, and then we can identify some of these issues. And here is VOC sampling right here. And moving on to wastewater, which is something that's been going on since February 5th. We have two steps to this. This has mostly been done so far in the affected areas, but it will move to some of the areas that have high traffic, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So the first step is to clear any debris, any potential blockages within the sanitary sewer line. We do this using a vac truck. So a big truck, it's about the size of a big garbage truck, comes in with a pressure washer, pressure washes the pipe. It removes any debris in the pipe, for example, soil, sediment, leaves, grease sometimes, just so clears up the pipe, and then the vacuum sucks it all out of the line. And this is done so when we lower the cameras, which is step 2, another crew comes by, they lower a camera, high definition camera, and it takes a really good video of the sanitary sewer line. The video is then sent to the county. The county analyzes the video using Dragonfly AI. We're using AI now to analyze it. And then once it's analyzed, then that's when they give us an all clear. Here we go. And upcoming, we have some nighttime operations coming up, February 26th to March 2nd. So starting next week from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., we're going to be working in the area where the Safeway is at. So starting from where the storage units are at down to the Safeway, from the Safeway to here in the Civic Center. This is done at night to minimize the impact of the traffic that's going to be caused by this. So there's going to be a little bit of disruption to the traffic. Also, it's safer for our crews to work at night since there's less traffic. And then lastly, there are lower flows within the sanitary sewer line, so our cameras can get a really good picture of what's going on inside of the pipes. We're also working with the Department of Wildlife, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, to minimize any impact to the wildlife in the area. We're going to be working pretty close to where the ocean is at, and that's a big concern for EPA. Now, I want to thank you beforehand for your patience. This might cause some traffic in the area. We will do it at night to minimize the impact to the community. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your kindness. And there might be noise from the back trucks. It might be a little bit louder, and there might be extra lights for the safety of our crews. But this will only take, we estimate, about a week. And if you have any questions, you can always reach us at epa.gov/Maui wildfires, or the phone number or email address listed right here. And once again, thank you so much. We are honored to be here at this time.
Aloha, my name is Kathy Ho. I'm with the Department of Health, and I am very low tech. I have no slides or videos. But I wanted to tell you that we have approximately, every week I come and talk to you about our air sensors. We have approximately 51 air sensors in and around Lahaina and Olowalu, and 4 sensors in 4 air samplers in Lahaina. If you want to look at your air quality, you can look at fire.airnow.gov, and you can see the air quality in fairly real time. We also did some air testing, and we got the results, and the results were from January 13th through the 24th. We sent out a press release. The results are online. Basically, it showed that your air quality was good, and that there was no asbestos, and the heavy metals were very low levels that does not pose a health risk. Several weeks ago, I was here, and there were several families from Wahikuli that approached me. And I know that housing is a very important and urgent thing for the residents of Lahaina. And they were really concerned because in Wahikuli house lots, they are on cesspools. And the current law is that if you are on a cesspool and you rebuild, you will have to upgrade to a septic system or be connected to the county system. So recognizing this, we went back to our office and we understand, we had some conversations with the county and EPA, and we understand that EPA and the county are talking about bringing in sewer system to Waiakuli. And that's going to take approximately 3 to 5 years. And we thought that we would, we could allow those families in Waiakuli to continue to use their cesspools, and we have some guidance we have some guidance for that. And I don't know if there's anybody here from Waiakuli. Okay, so so we're gonna post the this on the website, the guidance on our website. But we'll also bring some and put them in the on our table here if you need it. And so basically what we're going to be asking is that the existing cesspools are in good working order, and that the connections to your home and the cesspool is also in good working order. We're going to ask that the homeowner provide a certification from a licensed engineer to tell us that it is in good working order, and that your dwelling does not is the same bedrooms or bedroom-like bedrooms as it was prior to the fire. So we'll look at the county building code and the tax map key to make sure that your home is has the same bedrooms. And that's because if you build something more than your cesspool can handle, it will overflow. So we want it to be, and it would be not protective of public health. So we want, so that's what we're going to ask for. Also, that when the cesspool is, when the sewer system is brought to your home, that you connect up to the home. We also want to remind everybody that by 2050, all cesspools have to be converted. So that's the year 2050. And also there will be no new cesspools. So those homes that would like to have a cesspool, you cannot get a new cesspool because you have to have had an existing cesspool. So that's basically the guidance that we're going to be providing, and we'll put it on the web, and we'll give it to the county. So I'm going to hand this over to Dr. Diana Felton, who is going to talk about lead screening and other things.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Diana Felton. I'm with the Department of Health. I think, as many of you know, we've been concerned about some of the contaminants in the ash and people's possible exposures. So part of the effort to better understand that risk is to test people for lead. Lead is a heavy metal that is present in the ash, mostly from lead-based paint that was in houses that were built before 1978. So we have a lot of lead in our environment. The ash has a lot of lead. And one of the ways you can evaluate if you've had significant exposure to the contaminants in the ash is by screening for lead. So I'm lucky enough to work at DOH with our wonderful public health nurses. Our Maui team, part of them are over here. They've been doing some lead testing this evening. Thank you for those who have participated tonight. If you haven't gotten your results yet, they're over at the table. And we'll be doing additional lead screening in conjunction with recruitment efforts for the Maui Wildfire Exposure Study. If you haven't yet heard about this study, this is being run by the University of Hawaii, and they're doing a pretty extensive look and evaluation to see how people have been impacted by the fires in August. They're having 3 more recruitment events this weekend actually. There'll be Friday, tomorrow, from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Royal Lahaina. Saturday, from 10 to 4 here at the Civic Center. And Sunday, from 10 to 2 at the Ritz-Carlton Kapalua. So really, if you haven't participated yet, I highly recommend it. They offer some incentives. There's a $100 gift card as an incentive, and there's also lead screening available at that time as well. In addition, we've been doing a lot of lead testing for folks in Kula and Lahaina over the past couple of weeks, and I'm very happy to report that we have not found very many elevations. So the lead screening we've found somewhere between 5 and 8% of people have had detectable lead on their screening test, which is a very low number. And the screening tests actually have a false positive rate of 10%. So when we've been sending people to get that test confirmed with a blood venous test, they've been coming out negative. So that's really reassuring to me that people are not getting big doses of exposure to the contaminants in lead. Of course, we're still evaluating, we're still collecting information, and once the last of the recruitment efforts and the lead testing efforts for this month are done, we'll put all that information together in a little report and we'll post it and try to get the word out. But it is very reassuring at this time that people are not having heavy contamination exposures from the ash. Still want everyone to be careful. If you're in and around the ash, please wear protective equipment and do take care of yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Department of Health. Our next presenters will be our final before we go to our question and answer session. So keep that in mind. And as usual, we will be here after the meeting. So if there's something you don't want to ask in the general session, our entire team and our resources from state, federal, and county will be available as usual after the meeting. I'm going to turn this over to Bob Schmidt, who is the Deputy Director of the county's Department of Environmental Management, and Sarah Jenkins, who is on our information and outreach team for the infrastructure branch of the recovery efforts that we do. So and they're here to share with you the current outcome and the next steps for determining the permanent debris containment site. Bob?
So as promised, we're here to give you the outcome to the survey. And Sarah has been intimately involved in the survey, and so she's going to actually give you the report. And then I'm going to follow up with how the survey results are going to be affected in our final decision.
Mahalo, Bob. Aloha, everyone. I know I'm a new face, so I just want to introduce myself. My name is Sarah Lohilani Jenkins. I am not from Lahaina, but it is my Onea Hanau. It's a place of my birth. I'm a Molokai girl, recently moved back to Maui to raise my ohana. And I spent a lot of my childhood and young adulthood in Lahaina with my ohana and friends that live in the area. So I see this as both an honor and a privilege to be able to share this information with you all, to serve this special kaya ulu on behalf of the County of Maui. So we'll dive into the presentation. I do want to say there's a lot of numbers, but I'm going to try to break down some of those big graphs for you guys so you guys can kind of understand the public sentiment. So as many of you guys know, a few weeks back, Shayna Gao with Department of Environmental Management came and presented on how they narrowed down the 8 sites for the permanent disposal locations to the final 3. And that evening on January 31st, we announced that we were launching a community survey to continue our efforts in gathering community input and public sentiment. And we really wanted to just gauge the values that our community put on that selection criteria so that the Department of Environmental Management could do a better job in reevaluating and weighing those criteria so that the permanent site was representative of what the community wanted as a whole. So the Department of Environmental Management and the county contracted a research firm based out of Honolulu. The firm is called Anthology, and they helped work with us to develop a survey based off of the criteria that Department of Environmental Management used to propose the sites, and they also helped us analyze the results. There's 2 approaches to this survey, and I'll kind of explain the differences and why we did each of them. The first was a scientific survey, and this was basically a random sample survey. Anthology used open survey sources, for example, voter contact lists and things like that. People who typically opted in to take research surveys who already kind of agreed to it. And the reason we did this type of survey was to give the survey some scientific validity. So we collected over 430 responses. They called people via phone, and they also sent out emails to get people's responses. And this way we were actually able to confirm that people were from where they said they were from. One of the things that we saw as a downfall in the open link survey was that somebody could say they're from one location, but we couldn't verify that basically because of the nature of that survey. But we wanted to provide an open source survey so that our community could initiate and engage and respond if they wanted to. So some of the key takeaways was that the public survey, we collected over 2,327 respondents. This was over a 2-week period of time between January 31st when we launched the survey and it closed on February 15th. This was the survey that we shared on the QR code on that January 31st Wednesday meeting, and it was also the link that we had on Maui Recovers. So just kind of the two differences, and we'll walk you through some of the results for each of them. We can say that although there's two different approaches and some of the demographics behind who responded to each of those surveys were very different, the responses in terms of public sentiment of how people ranked that criteria were very similar. So I just wanted to point out the numbers. I mentioned the 430 number from the scientific survey and the over 2,300 number, but in total we had 2,757 responses in just 16 days. So I want to give you guys a moment to give yourself a round of applause. This was truly a community effort, and the Kaia'ulu had a great response rate. So I just want to thank you guys for participating. This is a lot of information, so I'm going to break it down, but this is the profile of the respondents. We basically asked some questions about what area of Maui people lived in, just to give us a better understanding of why people may have ranked certain things a certain way. And then we also gathered age information and how long people have lived on Maui, again, to help kind of us understand why people were responding the way they responded. Again, that's a lot of information. So some of the key takeaways was that approximately 56% of the respondents to the public survey, again, the one that we linked to on Maui Recovers, identified as being from West Maui. So over half of the people who responded identified as being West Maui residents. 78% of the respondents to both the scientific and the open link public survey identified as being lifetime residents of Maui or living on Maui over 20 years. So again, we had a lot of people who were responding who are either from West Maui or who have lived on Maui pretty much their whole lives, which is a great turnout. We didn't have a lot of people who have only lived here a certain period of time and wanted to provide their input, but we're still looking at anybody and everybody's input. I just wanted to point that number out for everyone. The clicker doesn't like me. All right, approximately 49% of the respondents to the public survey identified as being directly impacted by the wildfires. So this number kind of relates to the 56% of numbers who said they were from West Maui. Pretty much everybody who responded to that, who said they were from West Maui, who did the survey, were impacted by the fires. So again, a good representation of people who were impacted and what their sentiment is for the permanent disposal site location. All right, so I also wanted to point out from that big table that had a lot of information, some of the age demographics. We received a pretty even representation between kupuna, young adults, and middle-aged adults. And again, this is very great because we're seeing people who represent our past, present, and future engaging in this survey. And we're able to get a good gauge on what the sentiment is for each of those age groups because all of them are important and all of them make up Lahaina. So I wanted to point that out for you folks. Oh man. All right. Don't read any of this, but this is just the background that we provided people who participated in the survey. A few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Shane gave some background, but just in case people didn't see that presentation, we didn't want them to take the survey without any context. We just kind of gave them a general overview of what the permanent disposal site was for and the final 3 sites so that they had context before they dove into providing their sentiment on each of the criteria. All right, so this shows the rating of site criteria. It's just a clean table. Again, a lot of information. I'll dive into it a little bit more. But we asked how each of the community residents or community members rated the following criteria based off of the Department of Environmental Management's existing criteria. And we reworded some things a little bit just so that it was a little bit more clear. But you can see the ranking. And this next slide breaks it down for us a little bit more. So the top shaded area in blue is one category. The red shaded area is another category, and the green shaded area is another category. We saw the rankings naturally fall into these 3 categories, and we kind of looked at those themes of those criteria a bit more to kind of understand the public sentiment a little bit more. So I'll kind of dive into each of those as well. I know this slide is a bit hard to read. So the first criteria grouping that we saw was proximity. A lot of people ranked, over about 80% of people ranked the top 2 safe distance from natural environmental features and has a buffer zone between the site and residential areas like schools, hospitals, etc., as the highest in importance that they cared about the most in terms of the criteria. The second kind of grouping that we saw was consultation. So this was the second rated highest, was that people considered recommendations from subject matter experts and input from the community, as well as concerns about cultural resources rating second highest. And then the third grouping that we saw was road safety concerns, trucking debris, how long it'll take the site to be ready to receive debris, and then the increase in traffic congestion when trucking debris. This kind of we saw as falling into a logistics category, and this is what people tended to weight the lowest. They cared, again, more about public health, environmental health, then they cared about subject matter experts' input, and then lastly, they cared about the logistics in terms of how long everything will take, safety, traffic, etc. Another way of interpreting this is approximately 8 in 10 people rated the criteria in the proximity category a 9 in 10. This is, again, the proximity into natural environmental features and health, schools, hospitals, residential areas, etc. So just to kind of put it in visual terms, if we have, our 10 kupuna sitting here, 8 of them feel that they would rate the proximity criteria the highest. All right, another way of kind of breaking that down a little bit more is the consultation criteria. About 7 in 10 people rated that consultation criteria a 9 or a 10. And I do want to say that pretty much everyone rated everything from an 8 to a 10. Our community thought that all of it was important, so we had to look at all those small nuances to really pick apart what people cared about most. And all of it does matter. It truly does, but we just wanted to kind of understand so that when Department of Environmental Management takes on the task of scoring, that they can weigh it based off of community sentiment and their values. Lastly, about 5 in 10 people rated the criteria in logistics category a 9 or 10. So again, we see significantly more people kind of ranking this lower as less important to them. Again, not that it's not important at all, and I'll kind of get into why this may be important to think about later on in this presentation. Again, a lot of information, but if you remember, I said we had 2 approaches to our survey, the scientific random sample survey where they called and emailed people, and then the public survey. This is just overlaying that same criteria that I showed and talked about before, but with the 2 surveys. And what you can see is that they're pretty much the same. There's small differences, about 3% to 6% differences in each of the ranking, but we see the same ranking in both the scientific survey results and the public results. One of the downfalls of the scientific survey was that it was very targeted. They wanted to represent kind of the general population of Maui Island, because we understand that this is just not just a Lahaina issue. Wherever the permanent disposal site is located will have impacts on everyone. And the public survey we saw was a little bit more skewed towards Lahaina residents, because we launched it at this meeting and people are here feel a little bit more closer to the issue. So it was important for us to get both kind of viewpoints. And you see that even people who don't live in Lahaina or who may not have been impacted and are as close to the issue still care about the same things. So it's pretty cool to point out. It also gives some validity to both survey approaches and to the decision making for Department of Environmental Management, being representative of Maui Island as well as the Lahaina community. So this question, we asked people to rank how much they agree or disagree with the following statements. The first question was how strongly they feel about where the permanent disposal site is located. The second was the permanent disposition site should be located in West Maui. And then lastly, we wanted to see how much they disagreed or agreed with whether or not the permanent disposal site should not be located in West Maui. The top kind of box where you see with the dark blue shows the percent of people who ranked that the highest. So again, it kind of gauges the sentiment. Everyone ranked stuff pretty high, but we see in general, people feel pretty strongly about where it's going to be located. Over 50% of people said they felt strongly about where it would be located. And again, it's kind of next to the scientific public survey, you see very similar results, some slight nuances and differences, but I'll kind of dive into this a little bit more. Approximately 1 in 5 people in both the surveys felt that the final disposition site should be located in West Maui, so about 25%, which is not too much. It's 1 in 5, so take with a grain of salt, and we'll kind of walk. Does it like me again? All right, we also saw that approximately 1 in 4 people in the scientific survey felt that the final disposition site should not be located in West Maui, whereas 2 in 4 people, or about 50% of the people who did the public survey, felt like the final site should not be located in West Maui. And I just want to remind you, we had over 56% of the people who took the public survey were from West Maui. So you can see and kind of connect the dots that a lot of the people who responded with that sentiment were from West Maui and felt that it should not be in West Maui. This is kind of the same thing again, but it's showing the sentiment of how strongly people disagreed or agreed with the statements. The red shows kind of the skew of, in terms of like statistical significance. It basically just means that people felt more strongly about that and compared to how much they didn't feel strongly about that. And that's kind of hard to understand, so I'll break it down a little bit for you guys. This was a scientific survey grouping, and then the next slide looks pretty much exactly the same, but this is the public survey, and I'll kind of get some key takeaways. So the respondents who identified as being West Maui residents felt more strongly about the location of the permanent disposal site in comparison to residents of other regions. So you guys are a lot closer to this issue being located in West Maui. Overall, compared to other regions, you guys felt more strongly about where it should be. The next thing I want to point out is that the respondents who did not live in West Maui felt more strongly that the permanent disposal site should be located in West Maui. So kind of interesting, not in my backyard. They want it far away from them. We don't know what the reasons are, but interesting to point out. And we're going to be kind of taking in that information and absorbing it. And then lastly, respondents who are from West Maui felt strongly that the permanent disposal site should not be located in West Maui. So that's what I was kind of pointing to in terms of the demographics of who responded to the survey and the sentiment based off of each of these criteria. This is the rating of site selection criteria. I'm going to kind of skip over this because it's very similar to what I presented. But again, it shows some of the groupings for people who thought that the site should be in West Maui. It shows how they scored the criteria. versus people who thought it should not be in West Maui. It shows how they scored the criteria that way. It's a lot of information, and we'll have this presentation on Maui Recovers, as well as in the coming weeks, a final report for you guys to really dive into it. But we just wanted to kind of give you some preliminary information so you can understand how each of your community members rated the criteria. Again, skipping through this is the same thing, but the public survey. I don't know what direction I should point this in. Okay. This is kind of a new interpretation. So on the survey, we asked people how much they drove on Honoapi'ilani Highway. We wanted to know this because we wanted to see if there's any correlation between how often people drove on that highway and how they scored some of the other criteria in terms of logistics. Again, this kind of shows people who ranked driving on Honoapi'ilani High, so they drove very frequently, whether it was daily, weekly, or multiple times a month. People who drove on Honoapi'ilani Highway moderately and low. And again, I will kind of dissect this information a little bit more for you. So those who frequently drove on Honoapi'ilani Highway rated the criteria in the logistics category much higher than others. And as I mentioned before, that was rated the lowest in terms of overall public sentiment of the criteria. People cared the least about, the logistics of traffic, road safety, how long it would take the site to be ready. But people who are driving on this, road every single day, doing the commute between Lahaina, Ma'alaya, whether they're residents or they're working in this area, they cared a lot more about how long it would take to make the site ready, how many trucks are going to be on the road, how is this going to impact my commute, and that's really important for us to consider. The other thing within the logistics category, I don't know if you remember, but again, it's how long to make the site ready, road safety concerns, and increased traffic congestion. So this is something we're going to keep in mind, and the Department of Environmental Management is going to keep in mind when they're making the decision, but also in terms of outreach to make sure that once a site is selected, that you guys fully understand how this will impact traffic, because we also saw that this may be something that we can use as an opportunity to educate people on. If you guys don't truly understand the mass scale and how many trucks are going to be on here every day, we're going to make sure that we use this survey to really reach our community where they're at, to educate them, but also to provide information in real time and get you guys updated on that information. This is where I hand it over to Bob in the Department of Environmental Management, and he's going to kind of go over how we're going to use what I went over this evening, the results from the survey, and how they're going to reevaluate the criteria.
Thank you, Sarah. So is on the lower end of the concern as far as the public input. So on this slide, the top half represents the way we rated the criteria initially. And just for reference or review, green is high importance, yellow is medium importance, and red is low importance. Or in the case of the score, green is high score, red would be low score. And so as we look at the bottom half, well, let me back up. We've got a lot of engineers working at DEM, and so what's behind these colors is a spreadsheet. And so for each criteria, we have a bunch of experts that look at the sites and decide, in this case, how long it would take to make it ready. So it could be construction issues, could be ownership issues, could be environmental issues, cultural issues, anything that would cause delays or be able to expedite the project, right? So the spreadsheet behind this is each of these properties are scored, and then according to the importance or the ranking importance, that's also got a number. So green would be a high number or high importance. So in our initial scoring of time to make the site ready. We saw that as an important criteria. So now we come to the public input. Public input said that's not really a big concern to us. And so now I'm going to take this input and reweigh our criteria. So we thought it was important. We heard from you that it's not that critical. Don't care how long it takes as long as you do it right. And so now we're going to reweigh that factor. So from an important or high importance to a medium importance. And this is just an example. So those of you who might want to challenge math, this is just for example. So now I'm going to take maybe a score that was on the lower end times a medium impact, and I'm going to come out with a medium score. And even a higher score times a medium impact, going to end up with a medium score. And so it's going to reweigh, it's going to give us new results based on your input, your voices. And that's what we were wanting to do, is have your voices have an impact in the final decision. Oops. It worked well for me. Well, the last two slides. The one slide was just to remind us where we've come from. It was back at the, thank you. So back at the end of January, Shane Agawa came and announced that we were down to 3 sites that we're going to evaluate. Told us we're going to do the community survey. We wanted to hear what you had to say. We wanted to hear your voices. The survey closed. We told you tonight we'd give you the results. Sarah did a phenomenal job explaining how that turned out. And now we're going to go back and evaluate that and reevaluate the spreadsheet along with some other criteria. As Shane mentioned last time we were together, there's also other issues or other elements in the decision as far as the sites are concerned. In terms of some of the parcels are really large. You know, there might be places where there's cultural issues, where a site could be picked. Just availability, that sort of thing. So any new information that comes to bear will also weigh in on the decision. But I want you to rest assured that your input's going to change how the ranking looks. And we're going to take that information and make the decision on or before March 1st, as we committed. Really appreciate everyone who participated in the survey and gave us that input. Thank you.
I know I'm back again and I took a lot of your time, so I won't take up a lot more. I have some posters made with some of those really small tables that I showed for you guys to take a look at if you want. But again, I want to make an announcement that this presentation will be put on Maui Recovery so you guys can access it. And again, reiterating the fact that they're still on target to make the selection on or before March 1st, and that we will properly notify everyone via press release and also have a follow-up community presentation to go over, some of those things that you may not see that may have impacted the site selection in consideration with the criteria that we discussed. So if you want to come up after the meeting is Pau, I'll be over there in the back where those easels are, and I'll have some of the tables for you guys to take a look at a bit closer versus this tiny screen right here. Mahalo, everyone.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Sarah. I bet you thought, wow, I cannot see the small words. So happy to say these slides are going to be on Maui Recovers. We are also live streaming on Facebook on the county's page. You can go back and watch that because the slides appear by themselves on the recording, thanks to our dynamic team handling our digital media. And of course, Sarah is setting up those now that you can go and look at afterwards. At this time, we've been at it for about an hour and a half, but we're going to go ahead and take questions from folks on any of the topics tonight, or if you have other questions, we have a mix of resources here from the different departments, agencies, including our administrators here, Amos from the Maui Emergency Management Association, agency, oh my goodness, government agency. We're gonna run one microphone up and down. We're still technology challenge in a big gym. So if you could raise your hand with a question, but I will ask you one thing. If we can do the Department of Health questions first, because they flew in and they need to be back on Oahu and they are on a late flight tonight and we want to get them over the Pali. So we're going to take any questions for Department of Health, and I'm sure they're secretly hoping you have none. But if you do, on whatever information tonight, they talked about cesspools. I know that information will be spelled out more clearly and more formally as well. They just want to give you a little bit of a heads up on that. But they also talked about the health studies. So raise your hand if you have a question for our Department of Health folks. Okay, we have a gentleman up there in green, Mikey in orange, and then Kupuna in front. Shannon or Jackie? Okay, we got our helpers here. Jackie?
Oh, well, I heard
Yeah,
it first.
we'll do Kupuna first. Yeah. It's like the Kupuna card, you know, you raise your hand, we go to you first. I'm a discount.
Okay, regarding the cesspool, I understand you need to hire an engineer. Is that correct? At our own expense?
Yes. And what you just, so we, for the cesspools, the engineer, we're going to ask a certification from an engineer to determine that your cesspool is in proper working order.
And what type of engineer?
A civil engineer.
Oh my God. You know how expensive they are? And where are they?
And then for the connection between the cesspool and your home, you can have a certified plumber or a civil engineer determine that it is.
So you need a civil engineer and you need a plumber?
You can use a civil engineer if you like.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jackie, fellow in the gray on the top.
Oh, I thought I heard green.
We're gonna make you run today.
No,
Fellow
that's
in the
okay.
gray, followed by Mikey here in the red rush dress.
I heard green, sorry.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. First, I do want to echo what the mayor said about the Army Corps and the FEMA doing a great job, and Colonel Curry. I do agree they're going above and beyond, very transparent. That being said, a question about the scrapes. So the Army Corps is mandated to go in and take care of the footprint of the foundation and the halo, what they call the buffer area around the halo. So when they complete that, and we saw some video where there was quite a bit of the property completely removed, but if you look at the aerial shots of most of the properties, it could be 40%, it could be 80%. So, for example, my property might have a lot of green space, so only 60% gets scraped. I get the Army Corps letter of clearance, which tells me that that 60% has been cleared of those 6 heavy metals they're testing. So my question is actually for DOH, because I don't think it's their mandate. So the buffer area outside of the scrape footprint where my children play and we grow food and all of that, because we know that contaminates and the heavy winds, 60-mile-an-hour winds, probably went everywhere. Is DOH providing also a clearance for that partial property that was not scraped? If they are, how are they measuring the clearance? If not, why not? And the last thing is there any recommendation for bioremediation for those parts of the parcel that were not cleared? Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll go to Mikey here, the woman in the black, and then up on the top side.
So I want to just make one thing clear about cesspools. The guidance that we're giving is for those homes in Wahikuli that burnt. So some homes were not burnt and their cesspools are intact. This guidance doesn't apply to those homes that were not burnt. Okay. As to your question, ordinarily, the Department of Health does not do sampling. It's up to the homeowner to do the sampling. We can help you analyze it, but we don't do the sampling.
Thank you. Next question.
I'll just stick to my original question. Thank you for taking a look at the cesspools, but I'm a little bit concerned about the requirement that you build back the same number of bedrooms. Are you talking about permitted bedrooms, non-permitted bedrooms? We were all pretty much underinsured in Lahaina, so I think you're assuming that we can all move back and build mega mansions, and that's not the case. We can barely even build what we had. And secondly, we need to build back right, and I feel like you're going to stifle us if you have that requirement. A lot of us are multi-generational, we're taking care of kids in kupuna, we're not gonna have the ability to probably purchase another home, so we're all gonna age and die in our homes that we rebuild. So we wanna make sure that whatever we put on our property is pono for what we decide and what our family living situations are. So to conform to the number of bedrooms that we had on August 8th, I think you might be, how do I say that?
I understand. I understand. But my concern, the department's concern is that the size of the cesspool, you don't want to build more bedrooms, but because your cesspool might not be able to accommodate that. So we're just asking that whatever the building plans of your home prior to the fire, and you had a building permit, or that on the tax map key, it tells you that you had a 3-bedroom home, you build back to that 3-bedroom home to use that cesspool. Now, if you want to, when I was here speaking to other people 2 weeks ago when we had it, the concern was they wanted to get back to their home. And so they said, we have a house that is a 4-bedroom house, but we want to just get back to our home, so we want to just get a mobile home or one of those modular homes, a 1-bedroom, so we can just get back to our home. And, so we thought that was, that's okay to do, but when you build your regular home, then it has to be built to the size of your cesspool that your cesspool can accommodate. Because we don't want your cesspool to overflow and cause an environmental and public health harm.
Sorry, this is not for Department of Health. This is actually for Colonel Curry. 2 parts. What kind of erosion control are you guys using? And how long does the testing take?
I can answer that one really quickly. So erosion control here in Lahaina, right now they're using gravel. As it continues to move forward, they also have the option to use crushed cinder. That is intended really only to be erosion control, to keep as it rains. It's not intended to be building material. So again, that gravel or crushed cinder are the 2 materials that will be used here in Lahaina. The testing takes about 7 to 10 days for it to come back. We're really at the phase now where the tests we send off, and we're kind of they're we're hoping that that will be able to be quicker, but really it's proven that 7 to 10 days is about the right estimate for those tests to come back.
Is the sender that you're using coming from Oahu?
Not necessarily. No, I think it is the same contractor that we have that uses both, but yeah, not necessarily.
Okay, and again, we want to get DOH questions first before they have to leave to go to the airport. I think we missed someone here. Did you have a question?
Jeremy, but is there somebody else?
All right, Department of Health questions. Jeremy, anyone else? I see you, sir. Let's see if there's something new.
So someone asked the question, do you have to have a licensed engineer or can you have a licensed plumber do all of that, the certification? My engineers have said that it should be a licensed engineer, but I will take that question back to my staff.
Okay, Jeremy, for Department of Health.
So the engineer, like Mikey said, it's gonna cost an arm and a leg. It still will be cheaper than a tie-in. Yeah. Yes, I agree with that. But most of us cannot afford an engineer, number one. Number two, if it's mandated that your staff, when you take it back, licensed plumber versus an engineer, how about you guys tap into the Hawaii Community Fund and you fund all those houses that need a tie-in and hire an engineer to do all of those jobs at the expense not to the families, not to the people that need to build, because we cannot afford it. Number two, along with Mikey's question, the rooms don't matter. You can have a 3-bedroom house and 17 people living in there. You can blow out that cesspool. So the rooms don't matter. You can build 15 rooms and you have 15 people, or you can have 5 rooms and 15 people. The doodoo's still gonna overflow, right? So the whole idea about rooms, I understand what you're trying to say, the health hazard, that the cesspool is not big enough. But at this point, as Mayor Wayne tried to talk to the ways and means, we're trying to get people back into their homes, back onto the property, out of the damn hotels. You're just making another roadblock for us. That's really all you guys doing. Just let us build back on, tie into the cesspool, and when we can afford it, or if the Hawaii Community Fund or the Hawaii Maui Strong Fund can help support the tie-in, then we do that then. But right now, just let us get back to our houses. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Department of Health questions. Okay, sir, Jackie, back to gentleman at the top. And then we're gonna move on to the non-Department of Health questions.
Sorry, I don't want to belabor the point, but I just wanted to clarify the response. So it sounds like if you get clearance from Army Corps to go back to your property, whatever portions of that property that weren't scraped are likely still contaminated. So it's up to the homeowner to have due diligence on what they do with those parts of the yard. Was that sort of the response?
Well, so I think that it depends on how much was scraped out of the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers will certify that the area in which they scraped, which presumably was the contaminated sites, because they will look at the ash debris and clean that up. So it may be that the other portion of the property isn't contaminated. If the homeowner feels that he or she wants to get that confidence, then it would be up to the homeowners to get that tested.
Okay, and what would you tell the homeowner to make them feel comfortable that that area in 60-mile-an-hour winds had no contaminated ash debris and affect those areas? I assume that's the assumption.
Again, I would rely on the Corps of Engineers and what the sampling that they did and the determination of the debris field.
Thank you to the Department of Health. We'll move on to any other questions. So if you raise your hand, we'll go in that order. Okay, woman right here. Okay, hang on. Woman at the top. We'll get back to you. Okay, right here with the yellow hat, back at the top. Anyone else on this side? Just raise your hand. Okay, sir will be third after that. So Jackie, we'll start there, back up there, and gentlemen on that side. Go ahead, sir.
Hi. I've been trying to find out, considering doing my own cleanup, and I've been trying to find out for literally the whole 6 months where I can take my debris if I do my own cleanup. And I think I heard Mayor Bisson a couple of weeks ago say that the apartment building that's being rebuilt, took their debris to the Central Maui landfill. So I'm just wondering, is it okay for me to do the same thing? That's a lot of debris they took over there, so is it okay for me to do the same thing? That answers a big question for me.
Yeah, I can answer. The short answer is no, because the longer answer, I wish the Department of Health was still here. They could have answered that question. So that Kupu'ohi project that you're talking about that burned, they jumped through a whole bunch of hoops and requirements from the Department of Health. And so what was allowed is they could take their debris to the Omaopio, the landfill in Central Maui. But that was because they had gone through a series of things. I don't have all that information with me. I think Department of Health would have had, but they had very strict requirements they were required to follow, including the way they packaged it, similar to the debris that the Army Corps. And I want to make it real clear. The Army Corps of Engineers requires only their contractors be able to take the debris to the temporary disposal site, because they know what is going into those. Every contractor has a requirement of what can go in there. In other words, you have to separate out the metal and you have to separate out the concrete. When you allow someone, a private person, to do that, you do not know that that is being followed. Just like people who take rubbish to the rubbish dump. If you throw a paint can in there, if you throw aerosol, you throw stuff that's not supposed to go in the landfill. In this instance, because of the sensitivity of everything that we're dealing with, that's the reason why private folks cannot take their debris to that temporary disposal site. And again, that's being covered by FEMA and the Army Corps under a contract. The county is responsible for the final debris site. We're responsible for paying for that and for putting that together. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is that Kupu'ohi project, an exception was made because they followed the requirements that were given to them by Department of Health, who approved us using our Central Maui landfill for the debris from the Kula cleanup. But you'll remember the Kula cleanup used the Army Corps of Engineers. Everything that went into that landfill came not through private, but through Army Corps. And again, I was told that those contractors followed the same requirements and they were allowed.
Okay, so can I find out what those requirements are?
Of course, the Department of Health. So I wish I knew that was your question. I would have asked Kathy, or if she knew any answers to that.
Okay.
Mahalo.
Thank you. And we are looking forward to doing an update for those who opted out, what to do with your debris. So, sir, that may come in, if not next week's meeting, the following meeting. Okay. All right.
The question is for Sarah Jenkins.
Okay. Sarah? Oh, she's having her own workshop over there. Well, tell us your question while she walks over.
The question is in regards to, can we have the numbers from the survey? So what was like 1, 2, 3 from the surveys? I know you guys are going to announce what the county's decision is on the 1st, but I wanted to hear what the numbers from the survey were.
And number, you mean the final outcome? So those charts have the information. I'm going to let Sarah expand on that a little bit. Next week, Shane Ogawa will be here, the director of the Department of Environmental Management, to talk about the final decision that we expect to make in March. So hang on a second.
So I'll try to answer your question and you can correct me if I didn't fully answer it. So in the survey we ranked the criteria so that people can provide their sentiment for each of those criteria. We did not have a question that said rank the final 3 sites in order of what you think should be the site and what you think should not be the site. And the reason we did that was because we didn't think that that would actually incorporate public input into that process with how much people valued each of those criteria. We thought that people might just see a site and vote, and we really wanted to break that apart so that we looked at the things that the community recognized as important to them. And this was based off of community input from the hours of committee meetings that the county council had held, where they basically laid out all the different things that people thought were important or that they thought should be considered for the site selection. And we put that into this survey so that we can continue to build off of that community input and really see where people cared about across the whole island for each of those criteria. So once the final site is selected, we will show that final ranking, and they're going to take each of the additional weights and the scoring that they have. You saw the red, yellow, green scoring. The sentiment is going to reweigh that as Bob showed, and it may what ranked the highest, what ranked second, what ranked the lowest, and he'll explain the other factors that went into that permanent site selection being made, because it's a criteria, but there's also some other external factors that may play into that decision making in terms of acquisition of land and a bunch of other logistics. So I hope that answered your question. The survey did not specifically rank the 3 sites. It just gauged the sentiment of each of the criteria so that they could better score each of the locations.
Thank you. Sir, your question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all the work that everyone does here. We appreciate it. Mental health is a huge issue, and I just wanted to ask if there's any future plans to mitigate traffic congestion for the many people who commute back and forth from this side of the island over to the other side.
These folks are like, we're not traffic.
Yeah, I was acting more from the county side, and I know you might not handle that particular roads, but the traffic is very difficult for a lot of commuters, and it's just something I wanted to ask if could be looked into to see if there's additional routes that could help the people of Lahaina get in and out and north and south.
We will report back to you next week on traffic. We'll talk to both our highways folks from county, Department of Public Works, as well as state highways for both combination. Good question. Thank you, sir. Any other hands raised? I'm just trying. Okay. Oh, you see on the top.
Hello. My question is mainly for FEMA, but I don't know if they're here. It's more on the direct housing issue.
Sure. Go ahead.
I wanted to know, I know you're planning guys that have this question, might not be here, but out there's a lot. Why are these houses selected being held and landlords being paid already? And we've been told that we gotta wait and we don't get called back, we don't get answers. Or even for the background check, how deep you guys going? Because no, it should take that long. It should take 48 to 72 hours at least.
Okay. We do have FEMA here. If that is a question that the FEMA representative can respond to tonight. Otherwise, we can do a follow-up question on the background checks, why the delay and then the time involved.
I just heard from them today that it's been 3.5 weeks.
These two are not our ordinary FEMA representatives tonight. No problem. Answer best as you can, and we'll come back with a more definitive answer if necessary.
I'll try my best to answer that question. I think that it sounds like you're having a specific situation with direct lease. And have you been in contact with any of our FEMA representatives, either here at the Civic Center or elsewhere in the community? And they do have a helpline that you can call in order to get your specific questions answered about direct lease. Have you tried that avenue?
Yeah, we did that. Their response was just hang tight, be patient. But some guys are waiting 3 months for getting that house that they was told it's found for them. And the landlord got paid, but nobody in the house. And there's like I can count at least 20 guys with this issue.
Okay, so you're saying that you're aware that you've been matched with a unit and you've been waiting for it for 2 months?
But no response after that. We call, nobody called back, even though we leave messages.
Yeah, I think that I might have to get your name afterwards and try to follow up more specifically, unfortunately.
I see a FEMA representative on the top headed your way to help you with that
Todd, do you want to
specific
just talk
question, sir. So,
He's just going to talk to you.
okay, great.
Hands?
Thank you.
Hands? Anyone?
Any other, we're gonna take we've been at it almost 2 hours. Big agenda tonight. Next week as well will be another very important meeting. So we'll take a couple more. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Since we're on FEMA.
Oh, could you use the microphone just so everyone else can hear?
Since we're with FEMA on the same topic, I am under FEMA right now, but you guys have a list that I need to go through. A list I need to go through that I need to find a place. And people are price gouging on Maui. You know, my rent before the fire was $1,300. Right now, they're asking $2,500 for a 1-bedroom. Right now, studios are $2,200. Sunset Terrace. It's unbelievable. So what I'm trying to get at is, you guys are asking us for 3 places on the list every month. It's not easy.
Yeah, I totally understand that the housing inventory in Maui is a very challenging thing for all of us to navigate, particularly with being able to afford what people are asking for now. I would like to get with you afterwards and find out more about what it is that your next steps are in terms of FEMA and rental assistance and what it is that you're looking for, so I can help answer your specific question a little bit better.
We are hoping to have a representative from the Attorney General's office at our meeting to address quite a bit of those. Oh, Jackie, right there. Woman in the blue. Okay. We'll take that question and one more. Just raise your hand and then, okay. Oh, we got Tukupuna in the front. Jackie, right after that, Tukupuna in the front. Go ahead.
Aloha, I'm a Wahikuli resident and I have had my ROE completed since November 7, a little closer, sorry, November 7. And I understand I'm being held up because of cultural clearance. So nothing's checked off. So I don't know where I can go, excuse me, I don't know where I can go to look and see where I queue up. Why, is there a reason? Is it just throw the dice or is there something I can do to speed that up?
Colonel Curry?
Yeah, thanks. Just individual, you can see me after and we can get that address and I can run that down. As mentioned, you know, the archaeologists and cultural monitors do have to go through every property once we receive the right of entry from the county. So from the date that you turn it into the county and they work through their processes to validate and to get it, to make it complete. And then when they turn it over to the Corps, that's some of that time for sure. But yeah, if what you're tracking on the sheet is that it's still waiting a cultural clearance, then you know I can look into that for you and we can get that information to you.
Great, thank you. We're going to go to our 2 final questions. These 2 by Kapuna, Uncle.
Thank you. As I understand, the PDS site is only after the debris are removed and the recycles, right? So it's not rubbish, right? Am I right or wrong?
Yes, you are correct. That what's going to the temporary debris storage site that will then eventually go to the permanent debris storage site is just the ash and debris. All the recyclable metals and concretes and that material is all being taken off first and is going to recycle centers, being processed. So that does not go to the temporary debris storage site.
Okay, thank you. So my thoughts are that why do we have so much that's negative in the PDS in West Side or West Maui? Because we've had cane fires and all kind of crap, with agriculture side too, and it didn't bother us, until today. And personally, we do have a very sensitive matter where we have a lot of dreams and memories from this ash and a lot of lives lost in it. That's part of it is mixed in there. So why we want to throw it away? Hey, let this be a bright place, not a dark place where we put them. When somebody die, you put them in a grave or whatever, but in your thoughts, they're not forgotten. I think this can be one big turnaround, and that if we do have it in Lahaina, we can build one park, memorial park, and have a memorial wall or something with their names, the lost ones, so the family and friends surviving can heal, and they can go to that place and enjoy what there was before, maybe not physically but spiritually. I do believe that we live on in the next life, and those people that were lost need to be respected and honored for what they contributed to this place. And even put a beacon of light and call them Lahaina Outlook, so where people can gather, not only Lahaina people, but I've talked to a friend in Vegas who moved from Lahaina, and I wished him a Merry Christmas. And he told me, Lawrence, how can you do that? How can you say that? And he was sobbing. And I told him, well, because I grew up, Christmas was the happiest moment of my life. So I'm sharing it with you. Took 45 minutes before he told me Happy New Year. Why? Because he couldn't get over the loss and the feeling. And this guy he moved away from here. So I can only say that it's not only the people here, but people around the world now feeling these things. So it should be considered. Thank you very much.
Mahalo, Uncle. First and last, Auntie.
I'll make it fast.
Oh, you can go ahead.
This is for the Corps of Engineers. Okay, I live on Fleming Road. I have a house. I moved in, but I noticed you posted debris removal on 2 properties, one on the top, one on the bottom. I live in the middle, and we have homes. How do you determine, who gets to remove the property?
Yeah, so thank you. It's a good question. Part of the process that the right of entries went through. I mean, we got asked early on, hey, does it benefit me to turn my right of entry in quickly? And for the most part, in the big picture, it doesn't make a big difference. But at the beginning stages of this effort, the first rights of entry that the Corps of Engineers received from the county went into about 200, I think it was 268. Those rights of entry were what we did the initial startup contract with our contractor so they could get started while we were waiting on the others. So that initial batch was the first ones that got their archaeological clearance. And we have since gotten the rest, or what we've gotten the rest that we've got from the county, and have gone back to our contractor and modified their contract to add all those other ones. So, but for the reason that it does seem patchy within those areas is because that first 268 properties were the ones that they did their initial plans on. In the coming weeks, you're going to see much more where those crews go property to property to property, just because we have the complete ROEs now and we're getting those archaeological assessments done. So that's a bit of the reason why it seems spotty, but I think you're going to see improvement over the next few weeks.
Thank you all very much. At this time, I'm going to go back to Mayor Bisson to close out. Oh, Jeremy, how did you capture that mic? Go ahead, Jeremy.
It's in my pocket all the time. This question is for Jackie, I believe, with planning, permitting. What is the process? What is what are we doing with what is it, the speeding process or whatever it is? When are homeowners going to be allowed to start planning? When are they going to be allowed to get in there? I still haven't gotten any concrete answers for planning and the rebuild for any of the homes. You guys just did a press release, the County of Maui, a week or 10 days ago, saying private property owners were allowed to get placards for their contractors. That was a lot misleading because I got over 120 calls saying that, we're allowed to build on our houses already. So what's the process? What's going on? How can we speed up this process for permitting and moving forward?
Okay, I have to have one disclaimer first. I'm in the planning department, but I'm in the long range division and we don't process permits. But what I do know is that we are hiring a consultant to help process the permits that can go through this process. And so that's going to be the simpler processes, the ones that are not in the special management area, the ones that are more Mauka of the highway. They're not in the historic district, and they don't have the flood permit requirements. And so those can be expedited through that process. The other ones that are going to be a little bit more complicated, we're trying to expedite that, like the special management area process. And that's going to be the ones that are not shoreline, but, kind of more Makai side. If it's going to be just a single family dwelling and one accessory dwelling unit, you can probably get an exemption. And we're trying to make that process simpler so that the applicant can self-certify that they meet the criteria. If they're going to be building more, then by state rules, that doesn't count as an exemption from development. And so those will have to go through the regular process. If it's a shoreline parcel, that also has to go through the regular process. With the historic district, those have its own requirements. Flood permit, that's a federal law, and so we can't get around that one. So if you're in the flood zone, you still have to get your flood permits. But just by having this expedited process for the simple ones, that's going to really clear them out of the way. And having a consultant do it is going to really save time because the existing staff are already overwhelmed with the existing permits. So by having the consultants do it, it'll save a lot of time. That's what I know from just listening and paying attention from the long range division. I'm not sure if any of the others, okay, Mayor Bisson can share more. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. What we hope to do is bring the Office of Recovery, the expedited permitting team here to try to answer those questions. As Jackie pointed out, they put out an RFP for a contractor, a vendor, to come and help us. But I just want to manage expectations about this process. I think everybody understands, and we've talked about it tonight, the infrastructure is going to be one of the things that's going to guide us on this. Where your home is located, where your lot is located is also going to determine this. So we're still trying to find out if we have water. We're still trying to find out if we have sewer in many places. So it'd be misleading to say if your lot is cleared, you can go and build on your lot. If you don't have water, infrastructure, power, it won't be allowed. Now, there are some places that look very ready. We toured Kahoma today, parts of Kahoma that have many of them been cleared. They have water, they have sewer, they have power. So there are some places that I think could be. The second thing I want to talk about is what Jackie kind of mentioned. People that are along the shoreline, the SMA, there's a lot of things about the shoreline that I think we have to talk about in Lahaina. I don't think that's an easy conversation or a simple one. So that's another factor is the location. Another thing you guys should think about is one of the RSFs is planning, the community planning piece. I don't know how you feel about all the roads in Lahaina, because when we talk about Lahaina, there's so many different pockets. So some areas, in my opinion, the roads are very narrow and were difficult before this for first responders to get through, a fire truck and ambulance. So if you tell someone on that street, you can put your house back on that street, and you tell the person who lives across the road from them, you can put your house on that street, you've just limited your possibilities of trying to expand that road. So you gotta talk about those roads first, at least those homes that are along there. And we do have some contingencies, some plans about offering people other lots in other parts, Mauka. We have state lands, we're working with Kamehameha schools and others to see if we can do some of those exchanges. This is not an eminent domain, this is not a taking of someone's land. This is a negotiation to do a land swap. So why would you put your house back on a 4,000 square foot lot where you're gonna be right up against the road when you might be able to build somewhere in a nicer place or a bigger lot, and then we can widen the roads. You know, I'm not an engineer, but some of you may be. You gotta ask yourself, if you got a narrow place, you either gotta take a little bit from each side or all of one side, right? To make that wider. Now, if the lot is already small and you only take a little bit from each side, you just made the lot smaller. Might be even more difficult to put a home back on. So again, I think there's so many things to think about in the neighborhoods that make up Lahaina that is gonna go into that answer. I mean, that's a very fair question. We get asked that all the time. And there are some things we do not control, the county. We don't control all the elements. Some things we do. And of course, you know, we'll try to move as quick as we can, because I'm telling you guys right now, and we can end this conversation tonight on this note. Our goal is to get every one of you back to your homes, back to your lots. That's our goal for every one of you. And we're not going to stop until we get to that. However, we got to do it. So please be open for compromise. Please be open to talk about alternatives. And especially come at us with a solution. Come at us with a suggestion to help us with that. I mean, there's some great suggestions tonight already. So thanks to you, everybody. Please drive home safely. Mahalo.